Hey. Damn. Delicious. Starbucks today. The Starbucks trick I maintain is to just get the blonde espresso. That's the trick. Ask for the blonde espresso in your espresso drinks, and then not bad. I know some of you out there are going to poo-poo that, but it's true. I forgot to put something in the fridge. Stay with me. Otherwise, this is going to melt. It's going to be terrible later. Be right back. I am done. What's up? What's up, rockers? I'm back in town. I need a haircut. It's getting unruly. Jeez, tell you what. Anybody else experience this? Somebody said a little while ago, Pete's in the mid hair length phase. And that's true. That's where it's at. That's where you're like committed. I'm growing this crap out. And you're like, this is an awful phase. And I'm afraid to get it cut because then it's like you don't make any progress in it getting longer, you know? Price we pay for fashion. What's happening? I just got back in town yesterday. And we did the last 10 or so dates of the Nick Carter Who I Am tour, which was really fun. I really like Nick. We had a blast. He's a good cat. The band guys were all great. Everybody had a good time. It was a fun show he put together. Lots of fun covers that he wanted to go out and do and kind of pay tribute to bands that he liked when he was growing up. And that cat's got an interesting history. I mean, when you think about, he came from Florida and he went and did an audition for Backstreet Boys when he was 12 years old and got the gig. And then his whole life just changed, you know? It's kind of interesting. It's like, imagine that, you know, because he kind of came from, you know, humble means, I would say. And then everything just switched when he was 12. And a wild ride, right? So it's interesting, but we ended up having some fun times watching movies on the bus and stuff. He's really into 80s movies. So we ended up watching The Thing. He's really into John Carpenter, actually. We ended up watching The Thing and Christine. We didn't get to Escape from New York, which I'm sad about because that's actually my favorite John Carpenter, but The Thing was awesome. And Christine I hadn't seen since probably the 80s or something, you know? So anyways, it was a lot of fun. Let's get into some of your comments and questions and otherwise here. So Robert is asking, do I need the Quad Cortex to play at home at bedroom level, or are the neural plugins enough? You know, if you're not switching sounds and stuff, honestly, I think the plugins are great. I don't think there's a quality that you're going to get with the Quad. Like, it's not like, oh, it sounds better. You know, their plugins are amazing. So I think for playing at home, you're good with the plugins. That's my honest assessment. I don't always tell people to buy things. You know, it's like, honestly, they make great plugins. So it's only when you get into the situation where you're, you know, going out playing live, needing to take your stuff with you for sessions and live gigs and stuff, where then it's a no-brainer. So yeah, that's my honest assessment. I recently got an exotic RC boost, says Joe, coming in hot with a super chat. Thanks for the super chat. Love it pushing my AC15. Am I crazy for not wanting to use any other overdrives? No, man, whatever works. You know, I had an RC. It wasn't quite my favorite. It has a nice warm mid-range, but I'm a little more, you know, that like I like a little more cut or something, but it was cool for what it was. I liked oh, did you say RC? Yeah, that's the one I liked. I'm sorry. The RC is the white pedal. The AC is the one that I didn't the yellow one that I felt like was just kind of warm mids and sort of softer attack. The RC's killer. It's I guess can be kind of a dirty boost, like like grind it up a bit, or it can basically be a clean boost with some EQ control. I really quite like that pedal. It was really nice. And I agree, pushing something like a Vox or something is just great, I just had dinner with a fellow that's the president over in Japan, actually, of Exotic. He was a nice guy. We when I was in Tokyo, he was one of the folks that was at a little dinner that I was at. So that was really cool. So it's nice to see him. Thank you for that super chat. New guitar day for Steve. He's got a Garnet Red PTHSS. Thank you for getting that. I appreciate that. I hope it brings you years of fun and enjoyment and good tones and versatility. That's awesome. You'll have to tell us next week if you can what your read on it is. I'd love to hear comments and suggestions and thoughts and anything that you're thinking about it. I love them, man. I mean, I think they're just great. So, yeah. Let's see here. Do I still have a Mesa Studio preamp? No, I haven't had that for probably almost 30 years, but I did have one back in the day. I had one until about 1992 or so. And then I think I sold it. And like 89 to 92, that's what I used. Moved to LA with it. I moved to LA shipping a 12 space rack with a 295 power amp and a studio preamp on a student budget, no less. Imagine air freighting that stuff and a couple of 212s. How did I even get that stuff to LA? I mean, I guess it was air freight, and my parents must have just must have been so expensive. But yeah, 2 Mesa 212s. Why did I bring it? It was insane. Should have sold it in Canada and then rebought in the US and could have done much better. But I ended up keeping that stuff for a couple of years. I had a rack with like the 295 and the studio and was one of those shock mount Mesa racks. And then I had a Digitech 128 or whatever the heck they were called for effects in there. And that's all I had. I just used the 2 channels, and I used the Digitech for probably a little bit of reverb and delay or something, chorus or something. That was my rig. There was no pedals. I don't even think I had a MIDI switcher or whatever. It was probably just A-Bing the amp and change. You know what I mean? It was like I didn't know what I was doing. I was 19, 20. So eventually I sold all that stuff. Don't remember how. When you have gear back there and you're like, that was a lot of stuff. Like, where did it go? Like, how did I get rid of it? I don't remember where I took it and sold it. It must have been at maybe West LA Music or at Nadine's or something. I probably traded it in. I got a PV 5150 original block logo with a PV cabinet. And I think I got them through a shop I was working for. And probably paid like cost or whatever through the shop. I think that's what happened. And that was my rig for the next, at least until 95 or 6, when I got a King Royale eventually, around 96 or 7, from Top Hat, and ended up using that. Eventually I ended up with an Amplexador. So it was basically my 5150 and then Top Hat amps for the 90s. That's what I used. Ended up with a King Royale and an Amplexador. And then I got a Marshall DSL50. And that's around the time I really started touring a lot. Got a bunch of touring gigs and stuff. And the DSL50 became my main amp for a few years. There was one of the, the UK made DSL50s when those amps came out, DSL50 100. And they were all right. It was like decent. And the neat thing about it was that you could get them anywhere to backline. To rent, they were easily available. And if you didn't get a DSL50, you got a 900 and they were just okay, but it was like, I preferred the DSL50, or 100. And then I used those alongside of the Top Hat stuff well into the, the 2000s. And eventually around 2002 or 3, I got my first Divided by 13. And then I was on the boutique amp thing after that, pretty much solid. Yep, that's how that went. Let's see here. Andy says, nice to see you at home. Man, it's you're out on the road right now? Missing home already with a month to go? Yeah, dude, I really missed home as well this time. It's great to be back. It feels good. I know I'm going to be here for the next at least 7 weeks or so, and that feels really good to me. Just a lot of work to do, a lot of videos to make and stuff like that. But it feels great to be back in LA. Just going to take a day or two to, regroup. I'm going to do the show here today, and I'm going to clean up this room, which really needs it. I'm going to put a few hours in to just try to get it dialed in, and maybe start thinking about what's next, because I got a lot of videos to make. I want to give these guys a shout out. I'm going to forget the name because the name is not on and I can't remember the name of the pedal company, but we've got here the Anthem and the Hot Atlanta pedals. And this guy here is meant to do, let's see, this one's Leonard Skinner tones. This one's Allman Brothers tones. That's kind of what the idea was with these two pedals. I started a video for these out on the road, and I think I'm going to keep some of the tracks that I did, which were Hotel Room, done into a plug-in, actually. I think I'm going to keep a couple of those, and then I'm going to finish the videos doing tracks here in the studio through amps. And then you'll get a big wide variety of what it sounds like, kind of using them in front of modeling, using them in front of amps, da-da-da-da-da. It'll make for a unique video. Anyway, that's first on my list. I got to finish that. And beyond that, what else have I got to do here? Like so much. The Fender Modeler is sitting here. Tone Master Pro, I believe it's called. So they've talked to me about making kind of a slightly unique video, doing stuff that they haven't seen other people do in their videos with it. So I'm going to tackle that. And then a whole bunch of other stuff. The 2290 delay. All kinds of things. All kinds of things. What's my favorite delay pedal? Well, as of late, it's been the EVH SDE 3000. Because I put it on my board and I hooked it up with parallel mixer, and I've got H90 as well in parallel, and I love my live sound right now. It just, man, I just love the dimension and the sound, the depth with that particular delay and stuff and it's part of the whole package of what I've been doing. So I love that. So my delays right now are an Echoplex in front, which I just use for, tape style stuff. And then I use the SDE 3000 for, so I guess I'm all EVH kind of vibe right now. He knew what he was doing. Let's see here. What do you think of the Tone X if you never use it to profile? Worth the money? Well, it does a great job at if you find some good profiles. That Analog, what's that fellow, Analog M or something that's on Instagram? I think I brought him up last week. He does great ones. It does a good job. So, yeah. It just depends, there's so many options now, man. It's crazy. I mean, there's so many ways to go. It's like this thing. If you never want a profile, how about that guy? That thing is just, monstrously good for what it is on a board. And you could run it into a power amp and basically sound like a, I mean, it's just killer these days what you can do. Or how about this thing? The Lion, how about that? I hooked that up and got basically so close to Van Halen tone in about 20 minutes. We live in this time of abundance. It's bonkers. It's crazy. Let's see. All right. Knife Steve says he goes to the same island as Kurt Russell for my vacation. I dare you, when you see him sometime, to say, Snake Plissken, I thought you were dead. See what he says. Greetings from Edmonton. What's up, David? What's up, homie? Currently visiting your hometown, doing some consulting. Had a chance to visit Jasper National Park. That's pretty cool. For those that have never been there, it's beautiful. Yeah. Used to do Jasper and sometimes Banff on the same sort of family vacations. So we'd go to one and then drive to the other. And it's great memories for me, really is. One of these days I'll do that again on my own. Get up there and, pay a little tribute to the old family vacations. I knew this was going to come up this week. Ryan says, thoughts on Hagar's EVH tribute? I mean, great. I mean, he can go and do it. He was part of the band. Mikey, part of the band, obviously. I love Joe. I will say, and this isn't I wish, the only thing I'll say, I wish that they had if it was me and I was like, how am I going to tell people about this? I would have gone and rented a big, a small arena, but with production and lights and video and amps and big drums and a PA. And I would have slammed it out of the park as far as like telling people about it. That's what I would have done. That's the only thing. I feel like the Stern thing was just, that's my only criticism. I think it's great. He should go play the music that he was a part of creating and writing, and Mike was a part of, and everything. It's great. I just think it would have been, I think that if you're going to do Van Halen, it's a very, very difficult thing to do, first of all, because anybody that was there and remembers knows that it was loud, it was big, they were young, they were on fire, they played all the time, they were just like, and so to go and do it, it's like getting ready, it's like Rocky getting ready for a fight, you know what I mean? Like the Rocky montage of like, that's what I could imagine getting ready to do a Van Halen show is like you got to get in there and rehearse and do. I mean, man, when I did that thing with Mitch a few years ago, and we went and played in Florida, like we did a few days of rehearsal, and I practiced for 2 months before that on my own. We did 3 days of rehearsal. I wish it had been like a week, and done a club gig or two first. It still was pretty good. When I listened to the recording, it sounds good to me, the stuff that came out, but it's also, it's like there's an element out of it that sort of sounds like a band holding on for dear life. I don't know how else to put it. I'm just being critical of myself, like where it's like there's no way to do it without the way, like they were like the Beatles. The thing that Van Halen had that the Beatles also had, where they were great cover bands because they played 3 or 4 sets a night or whatever in clubs all the time, constantly playing, constantly in shape. And they were just on autopilot when they went and did that stuff live. Right. So there can't be any excuses. There can't be any like, what's the word I'm looking for? Just any kind of timid, and not say that they were timid or anything, but there can't be any of that involved. It just has to be like, get up, everybody up, that whole thing, like the Unchained Oakland video, you know what I mean? Like, and then it just explodes, and it's like second nature to them. And Eddie's running around doing all that stuff, and it's like with the smile on his face. I was talking to a friend of mine, Zoo, this week. He was the MD for Nick's thing, and he said that his memory of it is that Eddie was always smiling. He was doing all this stuff, and he was playing it, and he was always smiling, right? And that's the thing, like where it's like you got to be like, you almost have to be there, where it's just like, this is a party and it's amazing, and yet I'm doing all this amazing stuff, and it's like kind of just exploding. That's my thing. So, and it's kind of hard to do it if you do it in a TV studio. And it's, that was my only thing with I guess it's a criticism, but I don't know. I just would have done it differently, where I would have done it with room and loud drums and loud amps and stuff, and the whole thing just blowing up. Like that's how that music is supposed to be done, I think, and it's hard to do it any other way. Like I saw there was a band that played at NAMM earlier this year, as they always do. It's kind of like the Saturday night tradition. There's a Van Halen cover thing that goes on. I can't remember what those guys are called. It's not Atomic Punks. It's something else. Jude Gold used to do it, and Jude plays Van Halen really good. And always amps is my memory of him doing it. He's a guitar geek, and he's, kind of a friend of mine. I know him a little bit and stuff. And he, he, when he goes out and does it, in my opinion, he does it properly. He goes out and plays it loud amps and loud. And when they would play Saturday night at the Hilton, it was really great. Well, this past year they did it, and there was a different guitarist. It's not that he wasn't a good guitar player or anything like that. I think he had the parts down, but I couldn't really hear him. And he was using a modeler of some sort into the PA. And it was like, well, this is sort of what Van Halen sounds like if you don't really hear the guitar, And I was like, like about 3 songs in, it just didn't have an impact. So if the guy that was playing it sees this, I would just say, like, not as a, not being mean or being like whatever. I would just say that's my criticism, is that if you're going to go do it, you can't. I don't think there's a way to be reliant on the you know, this just gets me back into my thing about guitar and like, you know, amps and loud and sound people and stuff like that. You can't be relying on the sound person. That there's so many people out there that just don't get it, I think. You know what I mean? Like as far as Van Halen goes, and as far as rock, like real, like what rock sounded like and stuff. And like just being, you know, there's a time and a place to actually just be kind of out of control with volume and with amps, and or at least, you know, on the edge of like, that's friggin' loud, like that's good and loud on stage, like it's healthy, and then the band just rises to the occasion, you know. And that's how you have to play that stuff, you know. It's just, there's no other way that it comes across. It's just part of it, and it's kind of a bit of a young man's game too, is the other thing I think about it. They were all, you know, I mean, the first 6 albums, I mean, Ed was under 30 years old, right, when all that was done, I think. So I think once Sammy got in the band, when he was born 55, so he was about 30 around the time of 5150, you know. All that stuff was done in their 20s, you know, and they're just on fire, like literally, like no pun intended. But anyways, that's my opinion. I just would have gone out and blown it out live, huge, like gone for the biggest, loudest sort of, not loud, not just loud for loud sake, but you know what I mean? Room, amps, volume in an arena, mics, like gone for the way that, that Bob Clearmountain would go to mix his studio recordings, which is when you think about the amount of room and stuff on the snare drum on Born in the USA or whatever, or, you know, when you listen to Bryan Adams stuff, it's actually like very roomy, you know. I asked Bob once, I was like, with all your studio recordings, were you trying to basically make it feel like a live show, like exciting? Because that's what it comes off as, like. And he was like, well, kind of, yeah. Like, you know, I was trying to get the energy of like a show, you know, in my mixes, like that, you know, like that big rock energy. So I think we've, you know, lost a little bit of that and gotten pretty far off track sometimes when I think of these, like, you know, electronic drums. And I feel the same way about the Who, man. I mean, anybody see the Who lately with, you know, the Roland drums and stuff like that? Like Daltrey has this, I guess, like he just doesn't want to hear drums on stage anymore in his hearing, and they're all very, I get all that, you know, I get that, but it's like you could just plexi the drums, you know, plexiglass in front, and end up with a really similar result, I think. And it would have, you know, when I saw them the last time, just the drums to me just sound like, you know, the cymbals go psst. It doesn't sound like, you know, it doesn't sound right to me, you know. And I just think we're pretty far away from a few things that are very, 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 very important with the rock and roll experience and what made rock what it is, you know. And it's why when I go do stuff like Classic Rock Show, I'm pretty adamant. And James is cool about this too, the MD. We're always battling a little bit, even though everybody's friendly and everything, with the sound people, because we're in theaters and they're like, hey, you guys have got to come down on stage a little bit. We went to plexi in front of the amps, short ones, so we can still have the top speakers. So, but I'm willing to work a little bit on it. But it's like, there's something about the sound that, you know, we got to have the amps up on stage. And right now I'm working on, you know, trying to find an 810 cab and stuff like that for the tour and everything, just because it's like, I don't want to do a sanitized version of a rock show ever. And if we're going to call it Classic Rock Show and try and be the greatest cover band on earth or something like that, playing this stuff, it's got to be done properly. It has to be done with the impact of, you know, this. It can't be sanitized or some sort of Vegas version or like a, you know, lounge version of like, you know, because it just doesn't, it doesn't feel, it feels like, you know, what I could imagine having sex with a real doll feels like, which I've never done. Just for the record. You know what I'm talking about? That's the thing. Not a rant against, there's a time and place for modelers, there's a time and place for stuff. You know what I mean? But if you're gonna, if it's an arena tour you're trying to do and promote, it's like not the time and place. That's just my opinion. If you're not playing with a pop artist and convenience and doing a fly date, it's not the time and place. It's the time and place to bring out the big guns, the big amps and stuff like that. Rooms, drums, the whole 9 yards. And you know, that's, I don't know. That's just my opinion. Long ass opinion, but that's my rant. Anthony Perry, super chat. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Thank you. What else we got here? Recently got the EVH 78 Eruption Stripe. Really like the neck. Isn't it an interesting neck? You know, the neck is almost exactly the same. You know how I did that big EVH pickup video a while back? The neck is almost exactly the same as the guitar that the folks that you know, they made that guitar lock guitars, made it, and they made the neck for me and stuff. It's almost exactly the same. So it must have come digitized or something off of the the neck of the 78 that they put out a few years ago that was like 25 grand, that Fender did a reissue of. And I believe Ed still had the original neck. And I assume Fender went back and copied that neck for the, and it was always, 1 3/4 width, real thick, wide, real wide, not super thick, but thicker and a little wider than the one on the striped red and white and black, right? That series. And I like the neck too. It's cool. It's real wide and real interesting. Great finish. How does the neck on the Eruption guitar compare to the Frankenstein? So that's it. That's how it compares. It's bigger. Yeah, it's a bigger, wider neck, and feels almost exactly like the one on my Lock, which I'm pretty sure was probably a copy off of the Fender copy that they put out with the custom case and everything a number of years ago of the original 78 version of that guitar. Assume they copied it off of Ed's, the real one, which he still had kicking around. Yeah. Okay. Anthony says you just got the Keeley Super 18 mod. Where in the signal chain should I put it if I have a Klon clone? I would probably put the Klon clone in front of it, because the AT mod kind of does a ampy distortion thing, like a low gain thing, right? I think of the AT mod, from what I've heard of it, as a little more like an amp grind mid gain pedal. So I would probably put my Solo Boost in front of that. That's just my opinion, but you could try it both ways and whatever sounds best to you. I would put it in front of it though. I think like the Kalani pedal in front of it. Okay. I'm going to move down through the chat and go quite a bit lower here in the chat. So if you've asked a question, I'm going to miss it. I'm sure of that. I'm going to move down and ask again, please. A few gearheads. I saw Wes Borland selling a lot of his unused gear and guitars. Some is cool, some is meh. Like us all, we got to clean house every now and then. It's probably time for me to do that. In the UA vid, your legato was on point. Yeah, thanks. That riff in Mean Street is so unique and kind of just avant-garde, and sort of, you just have to, it's like a little bit of one of those falling down the stairs and landing on your feet things. And yeah. Okay. Let's see. What else? Yeah, Joe. So I give Satriani a lot of leeway because, yeah, I mean, Joe's an amazing guitar player and he's a legend in his own right. I saw a little bit of Summer Nights. I didn't see 5150. I guess I should watch that. He's a different guitar player and he's going to play, it's a funny thing because not a lot of these guys spend a lot of time like some of us. Like, there's a few of us out there that have really geeked out on EVH over the years, like me and Phil X. And that's not something Joe Satriani spends his time doing, I don't think. He maybe in his earlier days when he was teaching guitar a lot, in the Bay Area. But, obviously spends his time writing his own music and touring and being up on his own set and playing the way that he plays, which is, God bless him. We wouldn't want him to be any different, right? So coming into a thing like this, it's a, it's a tall order, like to, you got to, it's like putting the time. It's an interesting thing. And I'm very, kudos to him for like taking the challenge and doing it and wanting to put the time in, and especially in a year when he's doing his own tour with Steve Vai and he's got so much going on, like it seems like, So I was thinking about that the other day. Like it's an inspiring thing to see people as they're, the older sort of, generation or whatever, they're in a later stage in their career and they're taking on so much, and that's inspiring to me. As I get older, I'm like, it's like, well, he's one of my heroes and he's older than me. And he's got a hell of a busy year next year. So I shouldn't complain and feel like, like, let's get on it and get some work done, But yeah, it's a tall order to just dive into Eddie Van Halen, and that's what I mean. You kind of almost have to commit to just living and breathing it and playing like that like full on for a while in order to get it down, or at least get it to the point where you'd be like, okay, I feel confident enough to go and play a set of music like this. But he's Joe. Once again, he should do it the way he did. I mean, Steve Vai did it, back in the day. Steve Vai did it with Eat 'Em and Smile, and, having to then go out and play a bunch of Van Halen songs on tour. And I don't think Steve necessarily sounded like Ed. He was playing with Dave, and he went out and played his, he had to play Van Halen songs during that set, and he on the live tour. I don't remember anybody going like, "Oh, he's not." Maybe people did back in the day. There was no internet, but so it's hard to say. But I don't remember people like being super critical of Steve and going. People were like Eat 'Em and Smile. I guess he had a unique situation where he got to make a record, which was kind of a great record, obviously, right? Eat 'Em, Smile, and then go out and also tour Van Halen songs. So he's kind of had his own stamp on. He's like, yeah, we're doing Van Halen songs, but that's sort of secondary to the purpose of the tour, which is to promote Eat 'Em and Smile, and which is that we made a killer record, and he put his, that really put him on the map. I think that record, people knew of it. I knew of him before. I mean, through Flexible and Alcatraz and stuff, but then when he got the Roth gig, it was like really, yeah. Anyways, yeah. Okay, just moving down through the chat here. Let's see. Yeah, his Mean Street. As somebody's mentioned, when he played Mean Street. Mean Street is one of the hardest things that, once again, just devil's advocate. I was thinking about it. I was thinking I should sit down and practice that a few minutes a day, because when I did it at the show, it was hard for me. And there's this one part in it, as with anything. I'll just play it on bass because it doesn't even matter. I've got a bass sitting here, so. That's the shape of the. Okay, so that's where I always have trouble when you go. Can you hear that? I don't know if it's coming through the mic or not, but it doesn't even matter the notes. It's the rhythm of this hand that's really, so you tap here and then mute here. So that's the beginning. Tap with your finger, slap with your left hand, tap with your thumb. Tap with your finger, slap with your hand, and then double tap. So that sounds like this. And then you go like this. And right in that turnaround where you got to go, that's where it gets hard, because you got to tap with your finger, twice with your thumb, and once more with your finger here. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. You try and do it. It's really hard. And I had to work on it for like 2 months just to get it up to the level, and practice it a lot to get it to the level where it sounded halfway decent. See, I screwed it up right there, because I can play the rest of it right at tempo, and then I get there and it's like, so I sat with a metronome. And right there you can hear, and so I got through one okay, get to the next one, I screwed it up. That's the problem. You need to sit there with a metronome and do it. Now, here's a funny thing. Britt, my girlfriend, she's a drummer, and she also plays some guitar. And we were talking about it as I was practicing it for that show, and I was like, damn, this thing is so hard. Like, and I'm trying to get it down. And she goes, let me try it. And I give her the guitar, and I taught it to her. And she's a quick learner, real quick learner. And I taught it to her, and without a word of a lie, in 15 minutes, she was doing it as good, if not better, probably better than I had ever been able to do it. And she's a drummer. So it's so drum oriented. And Eddie was a drummer too. He played pretty good drums. So it was like, like it's all about a rhythmic thing. And she was getting it. And I was like, I threw my hands up. I was like, damn it, you got to be kidding me. Like, you can play this thing as fast as I can. Like, and the next part's not hard for me. The tapping harmonic thing is pretty easy. I can get that pretty good. But it's the that I can get in the next part, but it's making my hand do that back forth, da 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 da, tap with the finger, double tap with the thumb, tap with the finger, da 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 da. It's that motion in this hand that buggers up everybody. I will maintain on Mean Street, and getting it really clean. So, and so, there's not many out there I've seen be able to do it that great. He just had it, So, your version of Eruption, maybe 11 years ago on your channel, 11, it's 2008, believe it or not. So 15 years ago. Isn't that crazy? But thanks. Yeah, I was, I can actually do it better now than I could back then if I practice it once again. That's the other thing. You just have to practice it like so constantly, you know, every day and play a lot. And Eddie always played a lot, so his hands were just on fire all the time, you know. It was just, you know, he had it in his hands. So, yeah. Anyways, that's enough about that. Looking through the chat here. You have to have give David Lee Roth props for having such a voice that he kept up with that stellar guitar playing. He also just had Roth just had the magic charisma that tied it all together with making it fun, you know, because otherwise it would have almost been Van Halen was like, they were like a fusion rock band almost, you know, and then he was able to distill it down into something that felt like Rock and Roll Party somehow, you know, and not dumb it down, but like, it was just smart enough, you know, where they were light years ahead of most other bands that were out at the time as far as rock and, you know, musically intelligent, really interesting stuff going on, right? But Dave somehow made it all feel like a fun party, you know, and that's just, it was magic. It's chemistry. It's band chemistry. It's magical. So props to all of them, man. We lived in the time of Van Halen, some of us. Lucky. Robert, a full stack is also inspiring and nurtures creativity and being in the zone. 100%. Without it, not as much. Yeah. In-ears and, you know, or headphones or something and playing a modeler and trying to play. It's a completely different experience once again, you know. I've been enjoying my in-ears, I will say, on tour. The way that I've been using them and stuff, with the mics and stuff, you know. You know, really have been quite enjoying the way, you know, but I have a buttload of the ambient sound mixed in is the key. So there's another super chat I got to grab there in a second. Thank you for that. I'll hit that in just a second here. Great to have you all here. We got 377 people online. That's just awesome. Thank you for all returning. I know I haven't been so consistent with the time lately because of my touring schedule and stuff. Douglas says, I want to do amp heads and preamps, PS100 for direct out, no cab recording. Okay. Picked up a RNDI, I think that's a Rupert Neve, right? And Radial EXTC SA for growing into reamping. Do I need a preamp? Not really, man. I mean, if you want, if you've got a modern interface, the one thing you haven't told me is what's your interface. The other thing is just what are you going to use for impulse responses for because, you know, all that stuff there, that one thing you don't have is a speaker simulation. So you can do that in the DAW in your computer with an IR loader on the channel in Logic or whatever you use, Pro Tools, whatever. You don't really need an API or a Neve or something. I mean, you can run right into a line level input on something like a UA or Apogee interface coming straight out of, you've got a Rupert Neve DI. I mean, you don't even really need that, you know, because you've got the line out of the PS100. You know, you could just take the line out of the PS100 and run it right into a recording interface, like literally line out straight in. It's kind of a line. It should be a +4 sort of thing, or even -10 that right out of the PS100. Although the DI would work with a preamp. We could run, you know, the DI is basically going to give you that like a Neve. I'm sure there's a transformer or whatever inside, and then you can go into a mic level input, and you know, you can do that on an interface. I mean, yeah, sure. Some people feel like, I know Friedman's kind of a proponent for running line level things into APIs and Neves, or mic level DI signals into APIs and Neves. He feels like it gives it a little something. I mean, I feel like it kind of does too. I've got a Maris that I use here sometimes for that in my little rack that I'll run sometimes into the mic input and then take because I've got it on my patch, but I can just easily go in. It's an API style pre, so I can run in there, and sometimes you feel like it gives a little more solid like thing, but it's not really 100% necessary, I don't think, you know, to be. The one thing that I always think about is like, well, we're doing a lot of sort of transforming of the line level signal. Like, so in other words, you got an amp running into the Power Station 100. You're then taking a line level out of that. That's basically a +4. If you go into a DI and then into a mic pre, the DI is going to technically, I think, sort of take it down to, if you go line in and then you use the mic out on the DI, well, you're kind of getting to mic level input, generally speaking. So you're taking something that was already +4, bringing it back down to -30, and then you're going to gain it back up with the mic pre. Might sound better. I mean, but it's sort of a lot of, you see my point is that you're kind of challenging or changing the level a lot in that whole scenario, but maybe it's the way to go, plug it all in and see, try a friend's mic pre or something and be like, if I run the line out of, what you'd do is run the line level out of the power station into the Neve DI line input. You'd then take the XLR Neve output and go into some sort of mic pre and, into your interface, add an IR and listen, record. Get rid of the mic pre then and get rid of the Neve and just take the line level out, run it right into the line level in on an interface without those two other pieces of gear in the middle and listen to that and add the same IR and see what you think. That's the only way to really know, test it out. Hopefully that makes sense, but just eliminate those other two pieces of gear or add those two pieces of gear, listen to both and see if one sounds appreciably different or better. Appreciably. Is that a word? I think it is. Remember, I've got a high school education, but it was a Canadian one. Counts for a lot, I think. Douglas there with a super chat. Thank you for that. Appreciate you. Coffee fund. Got to get some more creamer around here and some coffee for next week. Let's see. Yeah, rock and freaking roll is supposed to be loud and jarring and ugly and beautifully scary, not safe. Exactly. Can't disagree more. If you take that stuff away, it just sounds like a sanitized version and kind of like a car commercial or something, as opposed to real AC/DC or Van Halen or whatever. We don't want that. Yeah. Mike says, Nick Huber Surfmeister. I don't know that guitar. Have any idea how I can find a guitar like this for a better price? The smaller body. Here's the video. That's a run-on sentence if I've ever seen one. Sorry. And I thought semi-hollow guitars were not for me. I don't know that particular guitar. I'm not sure what it looks like, to tell you the truth. But there's a lot of good semi-hollow stuff out there for, even I think some of the Gretsch stuff that I see that's inexpensive is pretty nice. You could look for an older, I don't know, Surfmeister. Nick Huber, let me just Google it so that I know what we're talking about here. So I have some sort of knowledge of, let's see. Surfmeister. What does this guitar look like? Let's all look. Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, it's a kind of a dual Filtertron bolt-on neck sort of jobby. Looks like a cross between a Telly and a Gretsch or something, right? You might look for something like a better. Oh yeah, they are expensive. I see. Yeah, it's pricey. What about those on a total budget? What about the Charvel surf thing that came out in the 90s? How about that? That's like a they were surf green and they had lipstick tube pickups, as I remember, and they were semi-hollow, kind of fun. Something else like, it's not going to be that level, I don't think, but I'm just trying to think outside the box here. Anybody got any recommendations? Like, it looks like look it up if anybody wants to help him out. Nick Huber Surfmeister. Very cool looking guitar, but not inexpensive for sure. Pete brought 3 half stacks to Destin for 1 gig. That is true. I don't know how to not do it right. I wasn't going to go play Van Halen music without 3 412s and the whole thing. Now, I did do it with a quad Cortex, but I ran it through a power amp and it sounded legit. If you do it right, like if you actually use a power amp and cabs and turn up loud, that counts for a lot because you get feedback and the whole, So would it have been a little more, if I'd done the SL68 or something? Maybe, but pretty good the way it turned out, I think, It's not that I'm anti-modeler. I'm anti no speakers and volume, really, The modelers do a pretty good job these days. I still love the tube amps. So, okay, here's one. I got 2 500 series Caprione Hyder. I don't know what those are, but it looks like running line signal mics through is amazing. So, okay, so it really colors the sound and you like it. Braxall likes the coloration from the transformers and stuff on the mic pre's. So, you got to give that stuff a try and see what you think. Thanks, Pete, for your videos. What do you think about EQ pedals? Do you prefer in front of, pre, or in effect? Well, they're both good. I did a video for both the Source Audio and Boss EQs that have dual EQs, and you can run 2 EQs at a time, and you can do that different things with them. But one of the things I do is run one in front, one in the loop. The one in front is generally for boost and overall tone shaping to change like the sound of maybe your pickup a bit going into the amp. If that makes sense. And you can, do the Eddie Van Halen sort of frown thing, boost the mids a bit, maybe cut the bass a little bit so it tightens up your pickup a little, and you can get a more drive into the front of your amp. Whereas, I find in the loop, generally speaking, I cut instead and do things like where I'm shaping the tone, maybe jumping a little bit of mids, a little bit from, anywhere in 500 to 1K in that range. Maybe you're cutting things a little bit and shaping the tone and just making the sound a little more finished as opposed to doing any boosting and stuff. So that's kind of, they do 2 different things, I would say in the loop is overall sound shaping. I would say in front is kind of boost, tightening, mids, kick the front end of the amp, different purpose. Yeah. Let's see. Any new exciting gear promo videos coming in the next 2 months? Well, so yeah, I'm going to do the Fender, which is the Tone Master Pro. So having said everything we just said about modelers, I'm doing that because I still like modelers for some things, I like them for certain things, which is actually what Joe was using on that show, which didn't sound bad to me, by the way. It's not about that. It's more about just had I done it, I probably would have done it with cabs mic'd or whatever and being able to get feedback and all that stuff, for the vibe, even in the Stern studio, I mean, Britt was just on Stern. She did Stern with Demi Lovato. Britt played drums. It was like loud live drums. She sounded great, and he even gave her props. He was like, "Wow, you were banging the drums back there." He's like, "Do you ever get a hard time like guys because you're a girl and you're playing the drums?" Because he's like, "You're really." And she had a little back and forth with Stern about it. So if you watch Demi on Stern, you can see that she's playing drums. I mean, I don't know. It's like whatever. Let's see. Where are we nowadays in modeler land? Well, they're all good, man. I mean, FM9, Quad, Helix, Headrush. There's so many. And now the Fender and, tons of them. Why an 810 cab? Oh, 810 for bass, Clay, is what I meant. I'm just trying to procure a, proper Ampeg bass rig for the tour right now. Steven's asking about IOL. This is a totally off topic, but intraocular lens and floater surgery. Yeah, I didn't go to a retinal specialist, but I went to somebody that specializes in lens replacement. And he recommended I wait. He said, do it when you've got a cataract, which I just have the slightest bit of forming now, totally normal for my age, nowhere near looking at operating or something. But he's like, yeah, maybe in 10 years you might have, and then you got to do it then because you got to get a new lens anyway because you're getting a cataract. And so he said, if I was your brother, I'd tell you to wait till then. He said, I could do it now if you want. I could take your money and do it. Probably would be fine. If I was your brother, I'd tell you to wait. That was the advice he gave me. I'm sure you would agree with that, right, Stephen? So that was what I guess didn't want to hear, but also wanted to hear. I wanted advice from a real expert. And he was an expert. He is an expert. He told me the other, like he said, I did on Thursday, he said I did about 18 or something lens replacements before lunch. He's a expert in the field for sure. I think he's done something like 26,000 or something. He said, I can't remember, but anyways, best EVH I ever heard was Jim Law. Wow, that's taking it back. Where did you hear? So are you from Edmonton? Where did you hear Jim? That's interesting. Jim was that's taking me back, man, to high school. We played in the same band for a minute and stuff. He was the guitar hero in my hometown that was about my age that was very burning on guitar. And he was like the, little bit of a prodigy kind of kid that when he was 16 sounded a lot like Eddie. And then he got into Steve Vai and he could do that too. He was a very good guitar player. Kicked my ass a little bit when I was a kid for sure. But this is going back to 1987. So, what else we got here? Let's see. Steve Vai did the jump solo, for example, note for note. Did EVH pretty immaculate. I thought Edmonton, Vancouver shows I saw the Edmonton show. Oh, so you were okay. So you were around back in the day, I guess, my friend. You remember? Did we know each other back then in the 80s? Sorry if I'm not putting two and two together. That happens a lot these days in my advanced stage. Yeah. Let's see. How do you take on an overly loud G string on a telly? Could be a pickup situation, where maybe you just want more of a different stagger or something like that. Would be something to ask, maybe a custom pickup manufacturer about, Ron Ellis or something like that. Like, is there a way I can get a stagger that works to, raise the B and the E or something and kind of, take the G down a little bit? Yeah. Yeah. Satriani said you can wear Ed's shoes, but you can't fill them. Yeah, I think that's true. You can step into them for a minute, but it's a difficult thing to try and link with anybody. But Eddie is one of the toughest. There's certain guitar players that play a little more, note for note, or like a little more rhythmically speaking, with soloing and stuff. They'll play a little bit more sixes or fours or groups of whatever that are a little bit more defined. Eddie didn't really do that. It's a little like there's other guitar players that are hard to copy as well. Like Alex Lifeson, I find, is another one that's very difficult to sound exactly like him because of his phrasing. That's totally just a little bit avant-garde and around the beat. So when I had to learn like the solo for YYZ and play it last year in Classic Rock shows, like I can only get so close. I can get the arc of the licks and the starting place and the ending place, but the phrasing in the middle, you could try all day to memorize his exact phrasing. It's like very, very, very difficult. The best you can do is do your interpretation, I think, and try and get the spirit. Because when the notes it's like that part in Mean Street, that somebody was mentioning, the legato part is just, it's open time basically, and he's burning during it. So it's like you're just like kind of like trying to get from A to B with the middle sounding somewhat right. You know what I mean? With the phrasing of all the stuff in the middle sounding somewhat correct, and starting and ending on the right point, and then it kind of gets really close, I think. So, yeah. All right. There's a super chat there that I haven't got to. I think I got to move a little faster here. Andy Rex, the Cams, coffee for you. Thank you, Andy. I appreciate that. Thanks for what you do, and thanks for being here. Appreciate it. We got over 400 people here, which is just amazing. I can't thank you all enough for coming back and hanging with me, especially when I've been a little inconsistent with the time lately. Yeah. Gary says Ed played drums first, which would have made it easier for him to come up. Yeah, he was a rhythmic, he had the advantage of a piano background as well as a, so rhythm with both hands thing, I think. And the rhythm with both hands, all that ties into the guitar a little different than just us that use a pick with this hand mainly. If you're playing with this hand and this hand on the piano, you also start on the drums, and then you also play the guitar. It just kind of all feeds into the way that he played, his tapping and everything. Obviously, your right hand on piano is busy, right? So for us, our left hand is busy on guitar. For a guitar player that's right-handed, the left hand is the busy hand. This one just picks. When we think about Eddie, of course, he started on piano and drums. Started on drums first, and then piano, classical piano. Really, burning at it, evidently, like super great. Imagine the workout that his right hand got before the age of 10. Probably. And then that sort of plays a lot into the tapping, and his dexterity in his right hand was just built in by the time he was, before he was a teenager. Which is, when I see Yvette Young play and stuff, that's which I've talked to her about the similarities between her and Eddie because of her piano background early on before she ever picked up a guitar. Lo and behold, that sort of translates into being a monster tapper, and rhythmic, super rhythmic and all that. So that's interesting. Ramalama ding dong. Dave Friedman and Mike Nielsen like the Hotone Ampero 2 stuff. Dave like the modeler. Well, you know, I think more than just it being a modeler, he likes the effects. And you know, maybe the ability to use them with an amp. I think he says he likes the modeling. He also he's talked to the folks at the company and he likes their approach. It is a very easy to use unit, and he likes that about it, like how sort of simple it is, and you know, but the ability to maybe use it for cable with amps and stuff he finds interesting for what it is. When Dave finds something he likes, he really gets behind it. He gets excited about it, and he gets very, you know, he's like that with Boss. Loves Boss pedals because of the simplicity and the robustness and that kind of stuff. He really likes their, you know, just how basic they are and stuff like that. When he gets behind something, he becomes a big fan of it. And when something gets his, you know, attention. No one swings like the king. That's true. Eddie had swing, you know, he had so much swing in his, it's just kind of innately, you know, and his brother, you know, and they played together like one organism, one mind melded organism. Yeah. Okay. There's another super chat there I got to get to. I'm just looking through the, what happened to your short guitar lesson videos? You stopped doing it a long time ago. Yeah, I kind of like fell off on that. I guess I should have kept that going, you know, and it's something I could still do in the future, the 5-minute lessons. I still, you know, I've got every intention of getting Patreon going pretty soon and doing some stuff for that, you know, so that might be more where I, you know, maybe I do some on YouTube, but like also, you know, gear them towards doing the Patreon thing because I need some content for that. If I'm going to do it, it's got to be good. It's got to be worth it. Yeah. When playing clean, do you prefer delay and reverb in the loop or in front? You know, it really depends on the amp to like sort of define clean. I really love actually delay and verb in front if the amp is clean to just on the edge. I kind of like the way that the front end of an amp, a preamp, compresses and blows up certain effects, you know, delay and reverb if it's not too much. It's a fine line, you know. And then if you just turn up the amp a little bit more because you're like, I want a little more grind, and then it just, your effects can get way too loud really quick. So it's a fine line, you know. If you like an AC30 on 3 or something, or a deluxe reverb on 3 or 3.5, effects in front works really good, you know. Can sound good, can sound even better, like because it's kind of dimensional and vibey and dynamic the way it can blow up a reverb or delay or chorus or stuff in front, that it can kind of just glue it all together and make it sound like, you know, really cool. But it just becomes a little bit of a wash, no pun intended, if you turn the amp up at all. And then so there's times where it works and times where it doesn't, I guess, you know. Just it really depends on your gain and distortion level going into the amplifier. You know, and you know, it's I love the dynamic character of it though. I really do like the quality that it can impart, you know, when it gets a little blown up. And you know, I made that whole EVH delay video, like where I talked about the Ain't Talking About Love and the delay bouncing back, and how in the middle part, when he rolls the volume down on the guitar, you're putting less input into the amp. So the amp cleans right up, right? Roll down the volume. And the delay, you can barely hear there then. It doesn't really come out because it's only when you roll the volume up or hit the hard, the signal hits the amp hard, that amp compresses a little bit and pushes back, and that blows the delay up. And it's a fascinating thing to play a delay like that, where it jumps out a little more the louder you get, you know? So, yeah. Okay. Thorn's here from the Netherlands. First time joining. Hi, welcome. Great to have you here. Great to have you here. Thanks for being here. Quentin's here. Quentin's you guys are polar opposites because Quentin's been here for a long time. You just joined. Just want to say hey and love that you do these live streams, allowing us nerds to connect. Excuse me. Yeah, it's the fun part, getting everybody together I look forward to this every week. Still do. I was really looking forward to it today, and it's not disappointing. It's pleasing me. By the way, anybody go see that new Scorsese movie? Should I go? I was thinking about maybe checking it out. It seems like a good one. Just wondering opinions. JJ Kane says, got the Thornbucker 2. Looking forward to hearing it in my classic guest. Got the raw nickel cover. Looks great too. Awesome. I hope you like it. Hope you do. Hope you do. Arthur says he had a medical problem, so he missed the other day. Hey, sorry about that. Hope you're okay. Let's wish Arthur well and a quick recovery, whatever's going on, man. I hope you're okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, somebody was giving a shout out for Duesenberg, I guess. Charvel Surfcaster was the guitar I was recommending. That was kind of a cool semi-hollow. And somebody mentioned Duesenberg. Yeah, that's a good, for sure. The Duesenbergs are real cool and a nice semi-hollow that's right in that vein of the Nick Huber for a little less dough. Not trying to take away Nick's business at all. But if you just don't have the dough, then you don't, you know. Oh, yeah, Reverend, too. That's a good call. Reverend makes some more inexpensive semi-hollows for sure. All those would be right in the vibe, I would say. Ever play a Malmsteen scallop Strat? Yeah, I just saw one actually in Japan, and I've kind of always wanted one. I scalloped a guitar myself in the 80s with, obviously, we know who the influence was. And I had a Surf Green, speaking of Surf Green Strat Plus, the one that came with the lace sensors, and I scalloped it. Sold it to somebody. Somebody wanted it, even with my scallop job. It was cool. Easy to play and bend. Yeah, I find it relatively easy. I grew up on big frets, so some people have a problem with the big frets and bending out of tune or pushing chords out of tune. Never an issue for me. I think just because I grew up playing like 6100s, and it was like, it's almost like having scallops and big tall frets. You can't push too hard or you'll bend out of tune. So I think I just got used to it early on with light strings. Thanks for the super chat as well, Robert. Appreciate that. How feasible is it to run the UAFX Lion 68 into a Fryette power station to your favorite cab? It's got a line level in, I think, right? Yeah, pretty feasible. I haven't tried it. I should give it a go, like run a preamp into the power station, see how it sounds. I think the power station would actually be a good, fairly neutral tube amp that will still lend a little bit of tube vibe because it's not meant to distort or anything, a power station. It's meant to be fairly clean, linear sort of power. And yeah, you could take a line out. Well, I don't know if you could send a line off the pedal at the same time. You'd have to add an IR a different way then, because when we look at the line, where is it? It's right here. I'm not sure there's a way. There might be a way, and I just don't know about it. I don't want to. I often get caught if I say things like this, but I just don't think there's a way to run an IR on one output and not on the other. But maybe there is. Maybe there's a way you can configure that on this pedal. It's quite possible. That the outputs could be run one DI, one without an IR. Sorry, one with an IR direct to a PA, one without to a power amp and cabinet. It's possible. It would be neat. I wonder if I don't know. Does anybody know? Look in the manual if anybody's got one. Because then, yeah, you could do that and have a cab on stage and not need to mic it. Because the IR sounds really good, obviously. I mean, I used it on the video. It's killer, I think. Speaking of EVH, would you be able to re-upload the sound file you using your Fender Bassman using the speaker extension only like EVH did with his old Fender? I tried that once. Like EVH used to run just it's a risky thing to do on a vintage amp, but run the extension speaker jack without the main speaker jack plugged in, and technically you don't have a load connected. But when you turn up the amp, it distorts, like, because you are driving the hell out of the output transformer on the amp. I never made a recording of it, I don't think. I might have, but if I did, it was over 15 years ago, and I don't remember if I might have made a recording, but dude, I have no idea where it is, and I don't really want to try that on my old Bassman again. Eddie used to talk about having to replace the transformer once a year or something on his old Showman, doing that, which, back then it was not such a big deal. Now it's like, I don't want to blow up my vintage Bassman's transformer trying something like that, but it's just generally not a good idea either. With all this, we're moving from the Lion to talking about a very risky way to run an old vintage amp. No, I wouldn't want to do that. If I was just practice, Eddie used to practice at home like that. I'm sure if he had a lion, he would have practiced with the lion, right? He'd be very happy practicing with a lion into a studio monitor. So we see pictures of him backstage, warming up on old champs and stuff like that. I think if he had something as cool as a lion, he would have liked it. In later years, I saw him with, Boss katanas and stuff, like in the 2015 tour, warming up backstage. So anyways, I already did this one. Let's see. What else we got here? What else we got here? Hobo says likes Transformers on direct kind of stuff. I use an array of Transformer action to fatten my tone. Kind of uses up space that most fill with dirty overdrive. It's my choice. That's cool. So explain to us how you do it, if you wouldn't mind. If you guys like, there's gonna be a couple of you out there that maybe run direct and they run into a mic pre, something like a Neve or something, but I'd love to know some of your share some of your tips and tricks on how you're doing that and what you like about it. I'd love to know. Yeah, I saw Steve Stevens using the Helix and I was blown away by his sound. That's cool. Where did you see him? Like, was it a live Idol show? Because I know he did some modeling stuff. I think maybe South America. He might have recently done something with Helix to, Steve is amazing, and it's all down to the, he's going to dial it in good, because you can make a Helix sound great, and he's running direct anyway these days a lot. Like, so in other words, even his heads, he runs, well, I don't know if it's direct. He might have a cab offstage mic'd, or he might be using 2 notes or Wazas. I can't remember. I think he's taking IRs somehow these days, even with his heads, which I've done a lot of too, but I know that they moved away from any cabs on stage with Idol's gig, at Billy's sort of insistence. I think, he didn't want the volume of cabs on stage and stuff. So anyway, it can be done. Steve's got a, he's a consummate professional, and an expert in all this stuff. He's going to be able to dial in a sound and use every piece of gear to its maximum potential, to get a great, thing going. Have you seen the U2 Sphere show? No, I would love to. I was there when it was just debuting. I was there rehearsing for Nick's tour, and tickets were like, I don't know, $1,200 or something. It was like, okay, I guess I'm not going to that unless I got some kind of hookup. But I'd love to see something there. Looks absolutely unbelievable. What else we got here? Let's see. Have you checked out the new feedbacker model on the HX platform? Basically like the Freakout. That's cool. I haven't. I use the Freakout all the time though. On my rig, I used it numerous times a night on tour recently, to just, even when I could get feedback because my cabs are there, it's just so easy. You can just stand on it, you get exactly what you want. So it's pretty fun. I gotta say though, man, my lead sound, I was just loving the tone, like PT100 on channel 3 with the gain on about 8, and I'd hit it with a Klon too to get even a little more, just a little more out of the pedal and the fat mids thing the Klon does. And then SDE 3000 with split stereo delay going on. It just was like singing, it just sounded great. I loved it. So fun. Didn't even mind it in ears because it's so dimensional with the parallel effects going on and stuff. I had a really good time. We did faithfully at a few of the gigs towards the end of the tour, and it was really fun. We just added it kind of at a sound check one day, and then Nick wanted to do it, so we just did it, and it was really fun getting the lead sound going and playing that singing Neil parts, Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let's see. What Wi-Fi did you use? I think you mean wireless, right, Rob? I'm sure Axient guy all the way. Love it. Does John Sir make hollow body guitars? He makes things like the Alt T, and sometimes they do Strat style, guitars with F holes. Occasionally, I've seen them. Yeah. let's see. What guitar is this? Just got one of the JR signature. Oh, you're talking about the Maton, right? Did you consider keeping that guitar for the tour? Love stainless frets on acoustic. I'm a Taylor guy live. I'm a big proponent. I mean, there's lots of great acoustic guitars out there, but I've just been so happy with Taylor, and I have one of their guitars. It's a 417, I think, is the model number. Maybe it's 517, but it might be 417. It's a sloped shoulder, kind of like a J45. Excuse me, like a Gibson. I was gonna say JTM 45. Getting my amps and my acoustic guitars mixed up. Like a Gibson J45. That same sort of vintage finish. That's what I was using as my main 6-string acoustic for the Nick tour, which I played on a few tunes throughout the night. And I love that thing as well as my 12-string from Taylor. I really like the pickups, the Neve preamp and pickup that's in it. It was originally designed by Neve, and they're really good. So, okay. Let's see what else we got here. Super chat there from Exit Stage Left, MB Exit Stage Left. When I've read and watched, compressors are inherently noisy. Any ideas on how to reduce noise? Well, I just did a video on this guy. No, you could get involved with that sort of thing. The Boss Noise Suppressor NS1X. It works really well. You can use it in front, or you can use it in front and in the loop of your amp for extreme noise reduction. Works really good. The good old MXR Smart Gate is a great thing. I didn't have that Boss on tour, but there was one night where I ran into where, oh my God, the noise was bad at a venue. And this always tends to happen on 1 or 2 gigs every tour. You just get incredible noise through the pickups, just like RF in the air, but you're standing over a transformer or some sort of power or something on stage, that's underneath the stage. And you just end up getting the insane through the amp. And you always know it's just coming through the pickups if you roll the volume down on the guitar and it goes away completely. If it's not coming through your rig when the volume's off, it's a very important thing to know the source of noise, like the difference between, say, ground noise and just RF, or EMI that's in the air. I got the old Smart Gate out, when I realized I was not going to be able to read. Here's the other thing. I could walk over to stage left and it went away. So I know that, it's coming through the pickups on the guitar, and I walk over to my position on stage. It was like, well, we can either reconfigure the entire stage where I move over to that side and we put the bass player over here, or I could just try and make do, because that's going to take like 45 minutes at least. So where it's sound check, it's like, let me see what the Smart Gate does. I pulled the old MXR Smart Gate out and I put it right in front of or just after my wireless. I think I put it just after my wireless on the output going to my pedal board. So it was killing the little bit of hiss that I do get even from the Axient. A little bit of hiss comes out of there, as well as the BS that was coming in my pickups. And that worked great. I've got a certain setting I use it on. I set the threshold all the way down, but I use the high sort of noise reduction setting. And that seems to work really good as a kind of Band-Aid, that it will get you through the night. And you know what? Once the crowd starts screaming, which they do for Nick, it sounds like the Beatles with that nobody cares about that little bit of, whatever noise is left over after that kind of thing. So, compressors before drives, you're always going to bump up the noise level. The job of a compressor is just to squash the dynamic range, basically. So it lowers the loud stuff, but it also tends to raise the when you use the gain makeup, right? You bring up 6 dB or whatever you do, so you get 6 dB or 8 dB of reduction when you're playing, but then you make up the 6 dB or 8 dB so that you get unity gain when you turn it on and off. Like the spike is about the same. Well, you're raising the noise floor like 8 dB, coming out of your guitar. So it's just how it is with any compressor. There's no way around it. Maybe they should make a compressor with an expander at the end or some sort of downward expansion. Be a good product for a company. Make a compressor that's got a gate in it or downward expansion as well after the compression circuit. So you get the sound of the compressor that intelligently then lowers the noise floor in the quiet sections. It's something I don't think I've seen. Yeah. Let's see here. I'm going to take a little poll, actually. Somebody's making a point saying, Pete has to play Jump every year on Classic Rock Show. I bet he would rather play something else from EVH. What about I'm the One? Who wants to hear I'm the One that's going to come to a Classic Rock Show? You know, James likes me to have one song in the set, and I maybe didn't have that on the last year. Maybe it was YYZ, but he likes me to have one little sort of showcase. YYZ is a more whole band showcase, but he likes me to have one thing. And he asked me about a Hendrix song this year, and I'm like, I'm kind of not the Hendrix guitar player. Like, I love Hendrix, but it's like not my first choice to play if you want me to go out and play a cover. But I said, what about I'm the One? Because I can play I'm the One top to bottom. I learned it years ago. It's kind of like I could pick it up. I could play it relatively well right now. If I had to get up and play it, I'd want to warm up for 5 minutes. But then, like, I could bust it out. If the drummer knows it and if everybody's solid, I could bust it out right now and do a pretty good version of it. So I'm like, kind of that one for me, because I've worked it so much to get top to bottom and be able to play it all the way through. It's like, it's kind of one of the most natural Van Halen songs for me to play. And I feel like it's the tour de force off of Van Halen 1. And there's a funny thing with England. It's like, I feel like there's some folks in like they're like, oh, I don't even know that song. And it's like, how could that album sold like 10 million copies? England was like a major market for them, I feel like. But anyways, I just feel like for the Van Halen nerds or whatever, or the people that are there to see me or whatever, would you want to see me do that? Because that I'd be really stoked about doing. So let me know what you think about that. Yeah. I'm going to go down to the bottom of the chat relatively quick here to see your comments, because I want to know. I need a little bit of support on this one, because I feel like there's other people that are like, and I'm like, I don't really want to do. I have other ideas about other songs to play in the slot, but kind of my number one pick right now is just go and bust out I'm the One. It's 3 minutes long or whatever. We can do it, and just that'll be my little thing. It's a fun one to do. Also, there's so many great singers in the band that we can kill the background vocals. Like, it'll sound, I've never seen anybody do it great, I don't think. I've never seen a band bust it out and really kill it. Like, and it's like, we could do that, actually. Like, it'd be, killer, I think. So let me know what you think. I picked up PT100, great amp, says Douglas. Oh, sorry, I glossed over your comment there, Ryan. I'll go back to it. What speakers you recommend? I use a Greenback and V30 combo in my signature cabinets because I feel like it's a great combo. It'll work great with Creamback H75s as well, or just Greenbacks, any of that, All V30s, not my favorite, but that's it'll still sound good through a V30 cabinet. Here's the secret on a PT100. On the distortion channels, the way the treble pot is voiced, or the type of pot it is, there's a lot of action between 5 and 6.5 or so, or 7. 5 and 7, all the magic's in there. So if you go V30s, you might want to back it off a little bit to 5 or a little over 5. If you're going with greenbacks and stuff, maybe a little closer to 6.5. So just play with the treble, depending on what speakers, and you'll probably find a great sound in there, no matter what you're using speaker-wise. It's a really powerful treble pot, and there is that one little zone on it that really works good. Ryan says start on piano at 6. Yes, I think it makes a big difference. Plus, play drums and tuba. Did you? That's awesome. Didn't know you were such a multi-instrumentalist, my friend. Killer. There's a super chat. I'm going to move down to the bottom of the chat here pretty quick. But Arthur, missed you the other day. Medical chaos. I'm sorry, man. I hope you're feeling better. I hope you're feeling better. I do. And thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. Certainly didn't have to do that, especially not in a time of medical strife. Thank you, though. I'll buy some nice coffee with that. Dino says, just acquired a PT15. Can't believe how versatile and loud it is. Never heard 15 watts sound so good. Clean channel is ridiculous nice. I'm glad you like it. Thank you. Yeah, I love the PT15. I used it in the Boss video recently, the noise suppressor video, and it sounded great. It's a great amp, man. I mean, and like you say, it's like 15 watts. Wow, and it'll get you, especially if you're on in-ears or something, you don't really need a bigger amp. It does the big amp tone, but at reasonable volumes, and really sounds and feels like a bigger package than it is. Bigger package. He said bigger package. I don't see many YouTube demo channels concentrating on the power amp contributes to the overall sound when it's an older type circuit on the preamp or digital preamp. I made a video on just that. If you watch I did a video on, I called it why real amp distortion is the best distortion or something. But what I focused, I think that's what it's called. What I focused on in the video, for those that remember seeing it, is the fact that when you turn up an old plexi or something, one of the things Yngwie said in his recent interview with Beato is he talks about how on a plexi, the gain is linear through the amplifier. And I thought it was a really eloquent way of actually putting it. What he was saying was basically you've got a certain amount of gain in the preamp, a certain amount going through the phase inverter and then into the power amp and everything. And it's all kind of linear. Whereas on modern amps, it can be a bunch of gain up front. And it doesn't sound the same when you do that as when so it's an interesting thing, a little power amp saturation. So it's not exactly what you're talking about, I think, but I did focus on the influence of the power amp and the whole chain sort of, doing a job, and how on a vintage amp, that's a really special thing, yeah, I mean, would be an interesting thing to make a video on something like the Lion running into the power station and compare through a cabinet what it sounds like, but there's definitely something to preamps running into tube. The tube power amp at the end always does a little magic thing, the damping and the little bit of the push, a little bit of the tube thing, always, if you're going to use a modeler into cabinets, it's like, well, like Helix into, I remember playing the fellow from Deftones. I played his rig. He uses Helixes into Fryette power amps and cabinets, and it sounds devastating. Like, it's really, really good sounding. So, just the effect of those power amps, really cool. So, Naive Steve is mentioning I'll be in the Netherlands in February and then Finland. That's true. We are expanding Classic Rock Show to Europe, which is really exciting. So we got some Netherlands dates, some other countries, I think, still to be announced, and one in Finland, Helsinki. So that's really exciting. I haven't been to Helsinki since 2007. Totally looking forward to that. Would I gig with just a UAFX Lion? Well, once again, I think I could have been very happy using something like that for the gig I did with Mitch. If it was a Van Halen kind of thing where it's a 1 amp sound sort of affair, and I run it into a power amp or something, it probably would sound great. Just like I made a quad Cortex capture of my SL68, and that's what I used. It probably would sound very, 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 very similar, especially if I went into a good power amp and the same cabinets I was using. So, yeah. There's Travis with a super chat. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for the weekly live stream masters class and tone. Thanks, man. I've learned a ton from Sunday. Hey, this is great. I mean, we've got 420 people online. 420? We should be smoking instead of drinking coffee? No. Literally 420 people online. Oh, it just went to 415. I just lost some viewers when I said that. What was I talking about? Learned a ton from appreciate you. And yeah, I just really stoked to be here and be back in the studio and stuff, and see y'all. And thank you for coming back every week. This is 295, show number 295. It's a lot of Sundays. Nowhere I'd rather be. Thanks, Travis. And Frank, also with a super chat. Ever putting up some of your modeler presets for sale? Dude, I've been I'm supposed to be on the Tone X page, and I've been thinking about doing Helix presets and stuff. It's just surely a matter of time where I've just been I've been spread too thin for about 3 years, and but I want to get it all going, for sure. It's just a matter of time, But I'd love to do even just 10 Helix presets or something. I would love to do, and maybe some quad ones, etc., etc. Dory says, hope you had a good time in Japan. Longtime listener. Hey, great to have you. And happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Yeah, Japan was incredible. I missed it so much. It felt like a dream because it's like I went back and then left. The time I spent there felt like when I was the day before, it was like, this was just a perfect trip. I'm kind of ready to go back home, but I could have just as easily stayed because I love it so much. But it did feel like not a cheat. It felt like this was great. Like just 5 full days of just being able to do anything I wanted all day long in Japan was terrific. And what Britt wanted, she wanted to go. to some different places and do some different things. And that I, probably wouldn't have done. Different neighborhoods and stuff that I'd never been to, just to explore a little. It was great. Discovered some places that I'd never been, even in all the time I've spent there. It was really, really fun. So a terrific time there. Jen, what's up, Jen? How are you? Good to see you. How's it going? Let's see here. Ben says he just bought a 64 Bassman, but have no cabs. Have Bose L1s and focal monitors. Can I use them? If you use a load box and some speaker simulation, you could do that. It's not really going to be the same thing as a cab, though. I would probably recommend a nice 212 with some, it's a 50-watt amp, so some higher power sort of, speakers, maybe something along the lines of a, it depends on the flavor that you want, I mean, the Fender cabinets that came with those amps back in the day were a certain thing with their speakers and the closed back 212 kind of jobby. I love those amps because I'm a rock kid. I just love them through 412s. I mean, the Bassman through a Marshall 412 was this, it's, the punk rock kind of Orange County rig, it's a 4-ohm amp. And you can run it into a 4-ohm Marshall cab or even into a 8-ohm cab or something, but they sound great into Marshalls. Greenbacks with, I don't know, it starts to sound a lot like a Marshall. You turn them up loud and they sound, run the bass low and run the treble and the bright on, run the treble up kind of, 6 or 7 or something like that, run the bass on like 2 or 3 and then run it into a 412 and turn it up to like 8 and with humbuckers and a Les Paul. What a sound. Maybe not what you do, but, not too far off from our Marshall, like a JTM 45 or something sort of, sort of sound. It's just great rock and roll. Yeah. Oh, this is interesting. Jen says, was on stage during the Winery Dog sound check and Billy uses the Helix now. Really? How interesting. Wow. And he used to be the guy that, I remember the back in the day, the Eat 'em and Smile tour was this big servo driver, 18 loaded sub cabinets and stuff. Like he had this insane bass rig, but everybody's gotten the other way with it, I guess. That's cool. I think Richie's still amp though, right? I mean, he kind of uses his signature, at least, for years he used his signature Tech 21 pedal into a clean amp. And then all the kind of the delay and the distortion and stuff was coming out of the pedal going into an amp. Whatever works. Yeah. What is it about a great clean tone that does not directly transfer to a great distorted tone? It's a great question. What I think it is that with a great clean tone, you can have a lot more high end, even direct, so like when we think about Pink Floyd, Another Brick, or like, some of the cool, clean, dimensional kind of stuff, it can sound terrific to have a ton of treble in the sound for a clarity and that kind of articulation. The second that distortion gets factored into that, it can sound very, very unpleasant, just because all those high frequencies are there. And we tend to like the sound of distortion with the high end much more rolled off, So I guess, part of the magic of like a plexi or something is what happens when you play dirty and then when you roll the volume down and it cleans up and all this air comes in the sound. And it's part of the magic of a fuzz, as like a fuzz face, for example, is a great example. It's a dark fuzz. They're kind of, dark and woolly, but when you roll down the volume on the guitar, happy accident, all this high end comes in the signal, and the impedance totally changes and it affects the high end and it sounds all sparkly and incredible. Like what people are trying to achieve all the time, probably getting a Hendrix sound or something by just changing pickups and like, where's that magic single coil, clean Hendrixy thing. And it was really a big part of it, I think, was imparted by a fuzz that happened to change the impedance and all this high end comes in. So it's an amazing thing. But a fuzz face is like a happy accident that way. Kind of the same thing on the Rangemaster, not a bright sound when, it was really like, mids and maybe lower treble that a range master would boost, but when you lower the volume on Brian May's guitar or whatever, by the way, his main, the two single coils in series, I believe they were, the middle one and the bridge one, that was the main sort of Queen sound, Tie Your Mother Down, right? That sound. Not an exceptionally bright sound with the treble booster and the normal channel in the Vox, and with those two pickups on it, and the volume rolled all the way up. But he could just, you'd vary the volume on the guitar, and as the more and more drive came in, the darker the sound kind of gets. It's really interesting. And to the point where, his lead sound was nice and warm and fat and all mid-range, and then he'd roll down on the volume and it brings in more and more high end. It's this incredible thing about that design of both a range master and a fuzz face, where they do a similar thing. And they just kind of balance the tone. It's a really cool thing. So it also kind of happens naturally if you use a guitar with a treble bleed circuit that's with a cap and a resistor, and you're running into a distorted sound. Well, with the volume all the way up on the guitar, you've got full sound coming out of the pickup. As you roll the volume down on the guitar, it's actually keeping the treble there in the high end, and you're rolling back the frequencies below a certain point. So the bass is getting attenuated and the lower mids are getting attenuated, but a lot of the treble staying in. And what's also happening is the sound's cleaning up at the same time as you're giving less and less output out of the guitar into the amplifier. That's why that sparkle and stuff comes into the sound. It's not as unpleasant as it, it's if it was mostly high end and stuff in the signal when it was really distorted, it would be like, oh God, it's like bright, but it's the bass kind of takes over when the volume's all the way up, right? And the lower mids, it fills in the sound and just kind of works. So it's a fascinating thing. But I think that what happens with distortion is mainly that it just blows up the sound, and kind of all the frequencies that are there, end up getting kind of, and it's not a pleasant thing to hear all those upper harmonics and things that when they're really distorted and really loud, so we tend to use, on modelers, I guess it's kind of all the rage on IRs and stuff, to use the low pass filter and roll back to sometimes 9, 8, 7K, and to roll all that high end stuff out to kind of darken the sound. Even Bumblefoot was on the show talking about how he uses an IR after an IR. And I was like, really? That's interesting. He's like, yeah. And he doesn't blend it in all the way, blends in at 50%. Well, what I took that away, it's going to shape the tone, but it's also going to be another level of high cut. And he talked about it on the show. If you watch the previous episode I did with him, he talks about how as he blends it in at 50% or something, that IR, it just kind of takes all the high unpleasant stuff out of the sound and give him a nice fat, and in the clips I've seen of him using, I guess he's using Helix as well. Here's the Helix coming up again. He seems to have a great sound, live with it. So there you go. But yeah, I think it all comes down to more high end and clean is nice, less high end and dirty is nice. So they don't always translate. On something like a Sir Eclipse, there's a really aggressive high end filter that you can take it way down, and you can kind of make that pedal work through bright amps, through dark amps, because it just closes down the top end coming out of the distortion pedal. Similar to the presence control and the treble on a BEOD from Friedman, really, really aggressive on the presence and I know they're labeled presence and treble like on a amp, but it really kind of almost does something different, the presence on a BEOD, because you can turn it way down. It's almost like a low pass filter that's just, like a normal amp. When you turn it down, it won't be that aggressive, a Marshall or something. On that pedal, you turn down that presence and the pedal gets downright dark when it's all the way down, and so you can use it to tame, if you run into a Fender with a bright switch on or something, you can still get away with using a BEOD and get a great sound by doing that. So yeah. Okay. I was going to try and look down through the chat here, at, I wanted your opinions on the whole I'm the One thing. So let's see here. On this subject, as I'm going down through the chat here, if amp has great clean shouldn't sound equally great with a great overdrive and distortion. Well, it's very dependent on the overdrive distortion once again. So if you want a great killer kind of modern high gain distortion, I would suggest something like I say, the BEOD does this thing very well because of the way that the tone controls are designed to kind of, basically fine tune, tailor, and really in some cases just kill the top end coming out of the guitar through the pedal into the amplifier to tame it so that it sounds good going into a nice clean sound. Nice clean sound, I generally mean quite bright and clear. One of the things I love about greenbacks is that they're not as bright as something like a B30, or certain speakers can, H30s certainly can have, greenback's a warmer, woodier thing, but they can sound a little lackluster on cleans, and this is why. You got to pick your poison sometimes. Like, what's more important to you, the best speaker for dirty or the best speaker for clean? Because they ain't always the same. Part of why I went with an H75 creamback for the original PT100 cab is because I felt like it was a great sort of compromise. It did seem to do both things quite well. So, but what I'm really always looking for in dirties is a great greenback, kind of warm and woody, and, yep. Okay. Oh, there we are. So Arthur's supports. He wants to cheer on the one. David wants to cheer on the one. Fools. Well, I don't think Fools is this is supposed to be a tune where I'm featured, that was the idea. It's like, what do you want to be featured on? It's not an ego thing or whatever, but that's just what James wanted. I want you to have a song where you're kind of, and he was suggesting this Hendrix tune. I was kind of like, it's not really me, dude. Like, as far as I can do it. I did it we did Voodoo Child or whatever on the first tour I ever did with them. And I did my best, and I felt like it turned out pretty good, and I did end up having fun doing it. But I'm not the bust out the Hendrix kind of guitar player guy as my main. So that's just not, I love Jimmy, but it's just not my first, not in my DNA. As far as when I picked up a guitar, what I first started doing, I'm the one who would be awesome, says Richard. Pound Cake. I'd love to play Pound Cake, actually. That's my favorite tune. Maybe of the entire Hagar era, just the whole, I don't know. It's just a great song, I think. So I love a lot of different tunes from that era, actually, but that one's just, I don't know. It's just cool, but, yeah. There's a lot of love here for I'm the One. I like that. Okay, what else we got here? What power condition do you recommend for noise reduction and clean power? I don't know that a power conditioner has ever made a difference in my rig as far as just I've always got a strip in there if I've got a rack or something, and it's a Furman, or no, I've got a Juice something or other. I don't know what the one I have out on the road right now is, but it's similar to a Furman and it's supposed to do some filtering and stuff. But the Kikasui is the one that, I think that's how you pronounce it, that Bonamassa and AC/DC and the Foo Fighters and a whole bunch of different people seem to be using. And it's like a real high end, that you can take your 120 volt amp, you can run it anywhere in the world, and it'll do the voltage transformer thing, and it'll hold your amps at a steady 115 or 117 or whatever you want it to, no matter where you are and what power, and it'll do all the filtering, do everything. Keeps everything consistent. Seems to be the one that a lot of people really like. Yeah. So Travis says, Dory makes a great point. If Pete's really into the song, it translates and the crowd will pick up on it. Yeah, I just think we could do a real credible version of it, whether or not people there are even aware of the first Van Halen album or whatever. Maybe they'll want to go check it out after if we do a killer version of the tune, that's what I think, is we play it great. It's there's a certain element of you got to cater and do big hits and stuff like that, but I feel like there's plenty of that in the set, and I just feel like if we're going to do YYZ, we could play I'm the One. We did YYZ last year. We're not doing that again, but it was fun. But it's fun to do a moment in I don't know. We played Jump in the set, so there's already a Van Halen song, but it's Jump, which I love Jump. It's whatever, but it is kind of there's an element. Yes, it's fun and it's great at a show and stuff, but it's also a little bit of a lowest common denominator Van Halen, to do. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So it's not the, it was Eddie's thing on keyboards. It's not a showcase on guitar. I mean, the solo is great, but it's always fun. But I'd love to do. I'd go bananas if you played on the one. I mean, I think it would be. Naive Steve says, "Get rid of Bat Out of Hell." Bat Out of Hell is a massive song in the UK. It's interesting. It always goes over. People love it. They go nuts. I didn't grow up with it. So it's like, I've come to learn also that there is to respect the differences. It's the UK audience is a different audience. You can play a Rainbow song over there, or a certainly Whitesnake, or like different things. I mean, old Whitesnake, or different things that'll go over in England just like gangbusters. That Status Quo was one. We did one last year that always went great. You can't really do a Status Quo song in the States. People are going to be like, "What's this? Cool, but I've never heard this." The song that we did last year was a big hit. I'd never heard it before. So it's different. You got to cater a little bit to the country you're in when you're doing a show like this. So yeah. Okay. What else? Let's see. Did you hear that Slash is coming out with a signature line of Magnetone? I did. Magnetone, I've only played a couple of the Magnetone amps. Originally, over 10 years ago, when they came out with the 212 that had a stereo vibrato in it, it was unbelievable sounding. Really incredible. I don't doubt that they can come up with a great amp for him. I would say that I think that I listened to some recent shows, and his sound, I think he's using Magnetone of some sort now. His sound is not quite what I'm used to coming from him. It sounded cleaner for first thing, which normally I don't have a problem with, like cleaner and a little more vintage and stuff. It's kind of cool sometimes. A lot of live guys tend to go in the direction of more gain, can tend to wash out the sound, but it just didn't quite. It didn't sound like his sound on some of the videos I saw. But it's early days, Let's see what they come up with. Anyways. Yeah. Okay, looking through the chat. Here's the super chat up there I got to grab. I'm going to stick around for another 20 minutes or so. Keep going here. CRS in February, so will you make it to NAMM? Lauren, I don't think I will, because CRS actually runs all the way through January into February. It's quite long this year because we've added Europe dates. So if you look at the dates, I'm not sure what's advertised on the website. For those out there that would like to come, this is Classic Rock Show, which I'm, my next touring endeavor that I'll do. Let me see what's advertised, because I don't want to speak out of turn. I'm just gonna find the let's see what dates are up now. So the website is theclassicrockshow.com. Let's take a look and see what's up right now. So what's advertised right now? Oh, there's a second page added. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Everything's up. Everything's up. So it's all the way through February 24th right now. There are, God, we're doing 3 shows in London this time at Cadogan Hall. Cadogan. I say that wrong. There's also the Finland date, Netherlands, at least a couple in Netherlands. There's Glasgow. There's a couple that I think are happening that aren't up here yet, I think is what's going on. So I can't talk about them yet, but yeah, basically most of it is up there. So there's just some Europe stuff that I don't think is up there yet. So if you take a look, you'll see that it's starting around the 13th of January is the dates. I've got rehearsals over there before that, but yeah, please come to a show if you guys are in the UK, or if you're in the Netherlands or Helsinki, whoever's in Helsinki. Can't wait to do a little bit of stuff outside the UK. I love going to the UK, but it's also going to be fun to do some, like Netherlands is probably my favorite country in Europe, actually. It's so nice over there. Okay, let's see. Chris says he just got back from Japan. Did find a cheap Max on SD9, so I jumped on the SD9 bandwagon. Cool. One thing I'm going to do a video for is my friends. You made me think of, because they've got that new Landau pedal. I had a dream about them last night. It's so weird. I just had a dream about the Landau pedal, I think, last night. So straight. The way I dream of guitar pedals. This is the Bodhi G from, or Buddy G from Vemram. I'm going to do a little video on this. This thing sounds great kicking a Marshall. Kind of like clean boost, but dirty boost too. And so I got to get a video knocked out for that. I might do that real quick today, like, because it's pretty straightforward, but it's like real cool boost pedal. What else? Let's see. Moving down in the chat. Now I need to go back to Tokyo to get all the guitar stores I didn't make to. Which ones did you get to, Chris? What did you see there? Oh man, I'm so lucky, Ricky. You live there now. So what do you do over there? Did you get a job over there or something? Just moved to Tokyo area from California about a month ago. See, I want to do that. I love California, but I got a real hankering for Tokyo, man. It's just so much fun. It's what I could live out my days there. Probably be just fine. I would simplify my life, live in a simple, small fashion. Yeah, previous username says, I like to run both IR with PA and raw capture. That mix of recorded tone and live raw tone. Each complements the other. I agree. I love that. I've been doing it for a number of years now. Always nice. Always nice. Okay. Any thoughts on what the best plexi would be in the 50 watt range? I mean, I would highly recommend the Sur SL67 Mark II. For those that have seen, they just came out with a version that's you guys can't see my SL68. I should put it more prominent. It's right there. It's just in the dark. It's got the switches on it that have now come standard on the new version of the amps. You've got a switchable bright, switchable little mid gain boost thing, and a switchable fat cap, and then a new master volume, redesigned master that works brilliantly. It's a variation on a post phase master that just is killer. So yeah. Boy, I'm still far back in the chat here. Do you have the new? There's a poignant question. Do you have the new post phase inverter master? Yeah, I do. So the difference is it sounds a little more natural and full through the mids as you bring the volume down. I always found that the original one, while great and a really, really good version, it affects the presence and stuff, and just the amp starts to sound a little different when you turn it all the way down. You can get it quite low now, and it's actually like really good. And when I recorded, I did a comparison between the old one and the new one, and then I volume matched the clips. And when I listened, so I did it with the old style presence. Took the amp to Johnny, put the new style. Sorry, excuse me. I did it with the old style master, is what I meant to say. Recorded clips. Took the amp out to Sir. They put the new one in. I came back here. I recorded then with the new master with the clips at a low volume, and then I volume matched them exactly so that I could just compare the tones of the two masters. And the new one sounded richer through the mids and stuff. It just sounded really, really good. So, yeah, really, really good. Okay. Let's see. Oh, there's a super chat that I almost missed. Sorry about that. Rich, much of Eddie's magic was his ability to control the nuclear reactor level of volume feedback, which enhanced things like his cascading harmonics. No one can make a guitar scream like Eddie. Yeah, I mean, he grew up playing loud, so that helps, having the... I was going to switch to my other mouse here. I was charging it using a plugged-in one that sort of sucks for the show. Why on a mouse, can I just say really quick, do they not put I've got this one. Why do they not put the power here so you can like plug it in to use it while it's plugged in? It's so dumb they put it on the underside or right in the top, or I don't know, something where you could at least plug it in and use it when it's charging. That's the mouse I use. Some people probably see this and go, what are you using one of those for? But because I know there's better options out now. But I've just always used it. Never bought another one. Anyways, yeah, well, you know, Eddie just knew how to control an amp and play loud. I mean, it's part of it is that ability to control the distortion, use the volume on the guitar, and all that stuff that comes with kind of playing a loud amp live dynamics. You know, I mean, I think there's something about playing a modeler where you do that less. You know, like you just leave the volume up on the guitar all the time because it's like, I don't know, more so. You know what I mean? Yeah. Line 6 just released a new, thanks for the super chat. Line 6 just released a new firmware update for Helix Tom and Helix. Helix pedals. I guess I should give it a try. I've always got mine hooked up here. I should try the latest firmware and cabs and stuff and get into it. Okay. This is interesting. Good advice here. Phil S. says YouTube's best ever guitar tuition video, like a lesson, is Bumblefoot counting slow and tapping his foot, explaining rhythm. That's cool. He was a brilliant guy when he was on. You know, if you guys haven't seen, check out the show he was on a couple weeks ago. We did an interview, and I really enjoyed it. Great cat. How quiet can we get your Boss EVH delay? I'm 112 and 212. I have 3 amp heads. Do I need to get another cab? I don't understand the question. How quiet can we get it? I have a 112 and a 212. I have 3 amp heads. Well, I mean, you can just use it with a single amp, like a normal delay. You don't have to do all the wet dry stuff, but you can. You have 3 amp heads. If I was you, I would just try 2 heads and try it in stereo. That's what I've been doing. It's great. You can go full stereo if you want to, and it's cool, you know. So, you know, for what it's worth, all that info is kind of in my demo video, I feel like, for it. You know, just try the various configurations and you'll see there's Valeria and Jen, and they're hanging with one another in the chat. That's nice. Hi, ladies. Good to see y'all. If you want Fendery clean and Marshally lead in 1 amp, then the cab and speaker is the part where you have to compromise. Kind of true. I really like on cleans if I can have my cake and eat it too. And, you know, on dirty, I would have closed back greenbacks, and on cleans, I would have open back with, you know, various different speaker combinations. You know, 410 open backs is great, or you know, 212 with blues is beautiful for the Vox chimey thing, the edge thing. It's hard to get it all, you know. It's impossible to get it all in one rig. You kind of need a bunch of different amps then. So Naive Steve said you watch my Voodoo Child regularly. It's outstanding. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. That feels good. I mean, because once again, it's my not my number one sort of, you know, stylistic, but I did my best and tried to get into the moment. I did end up really starting enjoying it. You know, Teammate says Voodoo Child is part of my DNA. Love laying that song, DOA and Light Up the Sky, or some VH faves. Yeah, we've all got our kind of thing where it's like you feel real comfortable. And actually, I'm the one who's really comfortable for me. So, Simon says, sorry, a fly in here or something. Simon, what's up, my friend? Hey, I've still been thinking about making. I've been thinking a lot about you actually in the video. So for the guitar, which I'm going to do, Simon knows what I'm talking about, but I mean, I'm going to get on that, I think, before I got to leave for classic rock and make a cool, that guitar deserves a video. So thank you, my friend. Appreciate that. I'll see you soon in the new year. Let's see. If you got the backing singers, I'm the one, makes sense. Yeah, what if we just killed that? Like, and really like better than I've ever seen it sort of thing. You know what I mean? Outside of Van Halen, like I've never seen anybody really do it right, you know? What if it was epic, you know? I think that'll go over. Like, even if you don't know the song, it'd be like, okay, these people are like shredding right now. And then we got to that part, it'd be like, the more I think about it, I just think it was really cool, you know? So yeah. Ray's saying, what Rush song are you replacing YYZ with? I can't, I don't want to go too into it because the reality is I can't. So I'm not going to go there. I don't want to give away too much of the set. That's why I'm the one, would be the only, if I can get a vote on that. And if everybody wants to do it, then it seems like it's, thoughts on Studio 666 Foo's film? Which film is Studio 666 specifically? Aren't you talking about Sound City and then how they kind of moved to 666? I think you're talking about Sound City, right? Or is there a separate movie about that studio in particular? Because that when Dave buys the board and then they move it in there and stuff, and that's the console at his studio. It's called 616, I think, actually, the studio, not 666, which is pure evil. But I think it's Studio 616 is the name of the Foo studio. Jen should come see us in the Netherlands. That'd be awesome. That would be awesome. Naive Steve enjoyed playing there, but doesn't remember it. I wonder why. Let's see. What type of magnet do you prefer to PAF? There's a lot of factors outside of the magnet. So I like everything from Alnico 2 to Alnico 4 to Alnico 5, depending. I've learned that, the other factors, if you've got an off, not a balanced wind, that'll open up the top end and give you a little more high end. And then you get away with a darker magnet and all those different things. So there's nothing wrong with a good old Duncan 59, an Alnico 2 Pro sound, or Alnico 2 Antiquity sounds great too from Duncan. I love my Thornbucker both in the Alnico 4 version as well as the Alnico 2. It's a slightly different sound. And the VH2 from Bare Knuckle, that's another great one. It's an Alnico 5 pickup, So many factors in the sound of a pickup beyond just the magnet and the way to balance the different stuff and frequencies and stuff outside of just the magnet selection. So I've liked them all. But, you could put an Alnico 2 in a guitar and probably have it be way too dark and kind of woolly for me. Plenty of versions of that out there that I don't, and you could probably also put an Alnico 5 and have it be way too piercingly trebly bright for me. So when you balance it out in different ways, it's kind of how it goes. Do you have a manager or management company? I have a friend that helps me with some things, but generally speaking, I do a lot on my own, but I have a little help every now and then. Let's see here. Have you ever played a PRS MT15? Just a little bit, only in like a shop or something. I don't even remember, but I know I've played it somewhere. Has a vintage 30 that's way too bass heavy. Would a speaker swap help? It could be just the way the head's voiced, and could be just, maybe it's the cabinet you're using, I don't generally think of a V30 as being bass heavy. So I tend to think of them as actually not on the thin side, but a little more, razor mids, with that 2K kind of slice that they have. But I don't think about them as being bass heavy. So what would you guys recommend for I don't know if a speaker swap is going to get you there, if it's too much bass that you're hearing. Could be a simple amp mod. If you're finding it's like really bass heavy with the, you have somebody like Friedman look at that and maybe do a coupling cap mod or something where it lowers the bass going through the preamp and kind of gives you a little bit more of a Marshall-y thing all of a sudden. Yeah. I know this feeling. Saw Landau in London the other night. Burned my guitars when I got home. Thanks for the super chat. Appreciate that. Yeah, going to see Michael recalibrate your perspective on electric guitar and kind of makes you feel like you're a beginner again. But it also, I try and take away a positive, like, all right, I just got my butt kicked, and not knowing, like, not understanding what's going on all the time is kind of one of the things I love about watching a musician. Like, if I can't tell how he's getting there, Mike, when he plays certain things, I kind of love that because it reminds me of when I started, and it keeps the wonder there in the instrument. If I can always look at it and go, okay, I can see what's going on, and I'm not just talking about technique, but like sonically sounds and like dynamic and like the whole, also just Mike's connection is unlike anything I've ever seen. From his mind through the speaker, the sound just comes out and it sounds like it's just his ideas. You're hearing the sound of his heart and brain constantly through the speaker, not a lick that he learned, you know, although it might be that, but it's so integrated into his, it's like he's singing to you all the time through the guitar, a little bit like Jeff Beck did, you know, like that magic connection. That's where we're all trying to get. I mean, like, I think, you know, the greatest thing ever is that kind of ability to just pick up a guitar and talk about the way that you feel through the guitar. And that's what Mike just, unlike anybody, you know, it's an incredible thing. But I love going to see him because it's like guitar church for me. It does give me a little recalibration about what's important. You know, he's just a fantastic musician. Did you get to the Tokyo flagship Fender store? And if so, what did you think? I did get there, and it was amazing. It's a 5-story or 6-story, you know, in Harajuku. Incredible scene. I just happened upon it, by the way. I wasn't planning on going in particular, and I thought, well, maybe I'll go there. And then it wasn't on my mind when we first got to Japan and stuff. And then I saw it as we were in Harajuku, and I just went, oh, there it is. Let's go. And it was pretty amazing. They had the Fabergé egg Strat there. I think it's $8 million. It's literally like a Strat and a Fabergé egg that you can buy together if you're the Sultan of Brunei, I guess. Yeah. What's the name of that favorite guitar store? I would visit both Hyper Guitars, just incredible, as well as Guitar Traders. So those are my two favorite vintage shops. And then, you know, a lot of people go to Ochanomizu, which is an incredible neighborhood that has all the, you know, blocks of guitar stores. A couple blocks of both the sides of the street are full of guitar stores. And in Shibuya, there's a lot of good guitar stores too. The Ikibe store, I didn't make it to Ishibashi this time, which is in Shibuya. I should have, but I didn't. But the Ikibe store, they've got a new location. It's a little smaller than the old one, but exceptional. You know, it's like everything you need in there. That's for sure. Guitar Station as well, which is an Ikibe sort of sub store. That's all the high-end stuff. And I went in there and they had not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 of my signature models. 1 of the old version double humbucker, and 3 of the they had the charcoal frost or charcoal metallic, I should say, the garnet red, the blue. They'd sold the silver already. They got all 4, and so all of those were in there, which I was just so thank you for the support, Ikibe and Guitar Station. Appreciate you. Yeah. There's one guy in Japan that bought all 4 colors of my signature guitar. I couldn't believe it. He's got videos up on Instagram where he's playing all 4. I don't have all 4 colors. I have 2 of them. He's got all 4. I was blown away. It was like so cool. But he seems to really like them. He's like, these guitars are super versatile and they just play really good. And I just really like them. So thank you for getting all 4 of my instruments. Yeah. Switchable fat cap, says Vince. The fat cap is just a part in, you're talking about the SL68, I think, from back when I was commenting on that a number of minutes ago. It's just a part in the front end of the amp that it sounds a little fatter, thicker when you switch it in, like it sounds. It just gives you a little more fullness. It's not really more gain. It's just fatter without sounding bassy, like too much bass and flub. It just gets bigger. Not a stock Marshall value, but a cool take on, you know, subtle. Here's a good question. Have you listened to the new Stones album? Love it. Have you guys heard the new Stones album? Incredible, actually. Great. Like, probably I'm going to go as far as to say the best late career album by a major band that I may have ever heard. That good. Sonically, just the clarity and the sounds are huge, and it just sounds great, and the performances are all there, and it sounds like the Stones. Like, it's without I saw some great reviews. You know, most of the reviews are very, very, very positive, and one of them said, you know, they managed to sound like the Stones without sounding like a parody of themselves, and that nails it. The song McCartney is on, Paul McCartney plays bass on one song, is an absolute burner. And he's playing fuzz bass on it. It's just killer. It's kick-ass, totally kick-ass. The song Keith sings, because he always sings a song on just about every Stones, I think. Great, like great vocal coming out of him, and just a killer tune. The one with Lady Gaga is killer. Great video of that, of them doing that song at Fallon as well. It's just awesome. I love it. And then there's one song that has Bill Wyman on it. He came back and recorded with them for the first time in 30 years. And that song also has Charlie on it. So we basically got 1970s vintage Stones in a new song, you know, from all. It's really magic. So I got to hand it to Andrew Watt. He made it, you know, helped them make a perfect record, you know. That's just what you want the Stones to do. So I really, really, really like it. Another review, I said they made a record that you'll actually want to listen to like more than once, which is interesting. It sounds like, well, that's a low bar, but you know how a lot of bands put out a record like later career and you don't listen to it again. You're like, I just want to hear the old stuff. You know, that's common, right? With not this one. Like I actually want to put it on and listen to it. I think it's really, really good. So if you haven't heard it, that's my take on it. I love it. What are your thoughts on power tubes? What are your recommendations for tube amp replacements? You know, these days, EL34s, I got to say the PS Vane stuff is killer. Friedman's been using them, I know, and their EL34s are, he says that like almost no failures at all. Like, so nothing's coming back. They sound good. I've tried them. I bought a pair of those early, you know, red bass ones when Tube Amp Doctor started selling them, and they're in my old Marshall up there. They've been great. They sound really good to me. I like them. So that said, you know, most of I think JJ's gotten much more available and the kind of come back online. So, you know, for 6L6s and stuff, you've got options out there these days, you know. Look at the PS Vane stuff though. It seems good, you know, through Tube Amp Doctor or something you can order, or through, you know, the Tube Store or those different sites. I would say, you know, it's looking pretty good right now for those from what I've heard, you know. Preamp 2 is a little bit of a different story. It's been still a little sketch, but seems like PS Vane's actually getting it together there, although it's taking some time. Ooh, it's 1:55. I should go. I've gone over 2 hours. Let me just check the super chats here and make sure I got everything. Listening to Pete Thorn 2 earlier today, says 3J Music. Been a little while since I listened. Great stuff. I know I got to do another record. It needs to happen. So although it's not happening right at this moment, I am aware that it's way more than time to do it. So thanks for your patience, and I'll schedule something to get it going. I'm excited. I gotta get some new stuff going. Hopefully by next summer, so at least an EP or something. I'd love to put out an EP. Can I just do 3 or 4 tunes? If I can do that, you know, that's easier to tackle, I think. So maybe it'll be next, like 3 or 4 song EP or something for next year. Peter says, Killer Sunday show. Thanks, man. Glad to hear about the new CRS shows. All we need are the USA dates. Might be something coming. Yeah, hold on for that. Thank you, Peter, for the super chat. Appreciate you, man. And saw Mammoth with Wolf last night. It was a great show, running a 50-watt EVH EL34 version. Yeah, all the guys each use a, you know, one of those heads, I think, and they use the different variations of them, you know, and they sound great. Real heads, real cabs, volume on stage. Good. Cool, you know. Awesome. Yeah, I watched the Bumblefoot show twice. He was really entertaining. He really seemed to be enjoying the conversation. Indeed, it was great. He's a really, really sweet guy, and obviously highly intelligent and articulate, and a hard worker, and I really enjoyed it. So with that in mind, let me just double check. Oh, here's one more super chat. I'm going to grab all these, and then I'm going to give a plug after that. Plexco, we admit this. Have you tried the UA Lion compared to a regular Marshall? Not in direct comparison, no, but maybe I should do that, man. I could hook up a little AB box and then dial them. That'd make a neat video. 50-watt Marshall and then an AB with the Lion and go back and forth. Interesting idea. You guys always give me good ideas. Damn it. Let's see. Anything else here? Just real quick. Thanks for the super chat there, Plexco. Appreciate that. Hey, Pete, I'm getting an HSS loaded guard put together by Sir, getting the Thornbucker Plus. Can't decide on raw, nickel, or uncovered. Very similar sound, so don't worry about the tone changing. It really doesn't that much between those two. Negligible. I would simply decide on the look, based on the look. Don't worry about the sound. Do it based on the look. And yeah. Weird Without Charlie, says Todd Roy. Yeah, but Steve Jordan does a great thing, like it's really powerful, which is, cool because it drives the hell out of the, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I liked it. I love the record. I think it's great. Arthur says, love it too. So many classic bands sound tired. It doesn't sound tired. And Steve's a big part of that, I think, is his energy behind it just pumps. Ian says, I don't care for Andrew Watt. You know what? I didn't know much about him. And I got to say that, other than he's popping up everywhere lately, but dude, listen to the record, I mean, or maybe you did, maybe you left another comment about it, but dude, I think it slams. So that's just I gotta hand it to him. That record's killer. So I don't think you can listen to those tunes and not say like that. It's, gotta hand it to him. It rocks. Listen to the song that Paul did, and it pumps, man. It's just a great Stones. I don't know how else to describe it. Okay, that's it for this week, folks. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate y'all. I'll be same time next week, same place next week. That's what I'm trying to say. Remember, coming up, I think it's the 10th of December, whatever Sunday is that week. It's the 10th, I think. Kim from Soundgarden going to be on the show. We're going to do an interview. It's my honor. Going to talk about all kinds of stuff, including his new signature Guild guitar and our shared time with a certain singer that we both spent a lot of time with. Him way more than me, but I'm really looking forward to the conversation because I met him a few times throughout my tenure with Chris, and he was always so sweet and just really cool, and I just liked his energy. So it's going to be great to have him on the show. All right, everybody, we will see you next week. Take care. Take it easy. Be nice to one another. Love y'all. See ya.